Hello, I'm Emma and welcome to my natural cookery class. Today I want to work with a snack that's suitable for my clients who are on an Anti-Candida program where they're trying to keep all forms of sugar to an absolute minimum in the diet. This recipe is also suitable if you've got a diagnosis of diabetes or pre-diabetes and are working to keep all forms of sugar low in your daily intake. So we can all make food interesting if we're throwing in lots of fruits, lots of dried fruits. That's going to bring a natural sweetness to foods. But if we can't use those foods for one reason or another, then we've got to be a little bit more resourceful in how we cook, how we bake, and how we come up with some snack ideas. One client asked me this week, could I do a YouTube video with an idea for Easter in particular? So I've been thinking that through and I've come up with a little bun idea, a bun recipe, which you can either make into individual buns in bun cases or pop into a larger cake tin and bake as a whole cake. I'm going to be doing two variations today because a number of my clients can't tolerate eggs. So I'm going to be doing a version with eggs and a version without eggs. So hopefully you can find amongst these ideas something that works for you and something that you can use as a springboard for your own ideas, maybe adapt for your own family. Of course, if you are cooking for a family, you can, of course, add some dried fruit into this to make it more appealing, a little bit more sweet for children. But this is a recipe without any form of sweetening. So if you're new to this way of cooking, be prepared for a little bit of a change in taste buds. It takes about 2 to 4 weeks for our taste buds to adapt to flavours without added sweetening. So many of my clients have gone through that phase and they're now tasting new flavours in the foods that they cook and work with. So this is some butternut squash buns that are going to have a flavouring from almond essence, and they're my Easter buns for you. So we're going to do, as I mentioned, everything in two bowls so we get an idea of doing it with eggs and without eggs. Our basis for the recipe is to use ground up pumpkin seeds. So you do need some kind of grinder to make this recipe work. If you aren't following an anti-candida diet, you could use ground almonds. But for our purposes, we're using ground pumpkin seeds. I'm going to use 1/4 of ground pumpkin seeds in each dish. So for you, that would be, if you're making the ingredients all together, that would be half a cup. And I'll put these ingredients up on the website later. So 1/4 cup or half a cup of pumpkin seeds, and there's our pumpkin seeds before they've been ground down. Lovely, rich green colour, and they are packed with lovely nutrients, zinc in particular, and zinc is so helpful for immune health. It's also good for fertility as well. So we've got our pumpkin seeds. And then whatever amount of pumpkin seeds we use, we're going to use the same quantity of grated butternut squash. So I'm going to now use 1/4 cup of butternut squash. Pack that in there. There we are, press it down. And that's going to go into each pot from my two versions. Okay, and then we're going to need just whatever we've used in terms of proportions. If it's half a cup of seeds, half a cup of the butternut squash, then we use that same amount in teaspoon of baking powder. So I've used 1/4 here, so I use 1/4 of a level teaspoon of baking powder in each one. So if you're using half a cup, that would be half a teaspoon. A whole cup, 1 teaspoon. And then we need to just mix those together. Mix that all together. And we want the main flavouring to be coming through to be almond. but we're going to just put a tiny bit of cinnamon in there as well to give it some background flavour. So again, whatever you did in terms of quantities for the ground pumpkin seeds, I used 1/4 cup, so I'm going to now use 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon. If you used 1/2 cup, use 1/2 teaspoon. And then we stop following that pattern with the almond oil, the almond essence. We want a little bit more than the 1/4 or 1/2 teaspoon. So I used 1/4 cup of pumpkin seeds. I'm going to use 1/2 teaspoon of almond essence. This is 1/4 measure, so I've used 2 of those. And the same in this dish. There we are. So we'll blend those together well. And that comes together in a dough, really. You can see that's come together quite nicely. Now, one of these I'm going to make without adding the egg, and another we'll do using the chickpea flour, which I have mentioned previously. So for this we want to use about 2 teaspoons of chickpea flour. So 2 level teaspoons. And then the same amount of water, 2 level teaspoons of water with that chickpea flour. And we'll blend that well together. So if you're using 1/2 cup of the seeds and 1/2 cup of the grated butternut squash, then that would be enough for about 6 cake cases. So just going to pop the mixture in there. So that's, for me, that's 3 and 3 as I'm doing the 2 recipes alongside each other. There we are. So that's the ones without egg added. You can smooth that down, but don't pack it down. You want it quite light. And then in the one that we're going to use egg, for 1/2 cup of ground seeds, you'd use 1/2 beaten egg, 1/2 to 1 beaten egg. So I'll just tip that in here and mix that so it becomes soft. There we are. That was just under 1/2. So you'd be using with 1/2 cup, 1/2 an egg, and again just pop that into the cake cases. It's quite a firm mixture, you can see. It smells, the almond oil, the almond essence smells absolutely delicious. There we are, and that's all there is to it. So you pop those into an oven at about 175 degrees Celsius. Now, the ones with egg will actually cook quicker. They'll rise and cook quicker, more quickly than the ones with the ground flour, the chickpea flour. So if you're cooking with egg, 20 minutes at 175, then take them out of the oven and allow them to cool. The ones with the chickpea flour, they're going to need about 30 minutes, a little bit longer because they're a little bit more dense. The egg doesn't cook through, there's no egg to cook through the buns, so that's going to take a little bit longer. But they'll be about 30 minutes at 175. And when they're done, you have these buns. Now these are, this is one that was with the egg. If I open that up and break that, you can see it's quite light and delicious, delicious almond with that little background hint of cinnamon. And then the ones that have the chickpea flour, a little bit darker in colour and slightly more dense inside, but still absolutely delicious. So there's a little idea for a special treat for a snack over the Easter weekend, so that if you're on a diet that's avoiding all forms of sweetening, you don't have to feel too deprived and you've still got a little snack that you can go to. So my very best wishes for Easter. Please keep well during this period of social isolation and watching over our health. And I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye for now.